Hi, I just wanted to jump on here and make a really quick, kind of off the cuff video. I think I left off last time saying that I was going to come on here and talk about why I had the long lapse in videos. And this is more of a, I guess, like personal side of stuff rather than nursing school side of stuff. But if you're at all interested in medicine, you might find this kind of interesting. I think where I left off, I had finished up my first semester and made all A's. Super exciting. That obviously ended in December. I enrolled for my spring semester, enrolled for two classes, math and nursing nutrition, and dropped math pretty quickly because I think, as I said before, I'm not smarter than a fifth grader. So I really got to take that class when it is my sole focus. I need to do that like in a summer session when I can bang it out and not have to think about anything but math. Trying to do it and focus on another class is just too much because I end up saying, I'll worry about that later, and then I just don't get to it. So anyway, my sole focus for this semester was going to be nutrition for nursing, which has got enough math in it anyway. So I started that class off. It was hard enough to get into that class just because I don't find it interesting. But not very long after the class started, I was here one night and I had the worst, strangest pain shoot across the right side of my face. It kind of started near my ear and wrapped all kind of along my hairline, down into my jaw, across my cheek, across my eye, up into my forehead. It lasted a few seconds and then it was gone. But it was strange enough to really get my attention, so much so that my husband was out of town, and when I talked to him that night, I'm like, my face hurts. Like, that's weird. And he's like, do you have a toothache? And I'm like, maybe, but I've had toothaches before, but this is like my face. My face hurts. So I went on Facebook and I asked friends, like, has anybody ever had this? This is so weird. And, several people suggested, tooth pain, TMJ, which I do have TMJ. Bell's palsy was mentioned, and I have a family member who's had Bell's palsy, so I texted her and I asked her what her initial symptoms were when she first had it, and it was very different. Not at all what I was experiencing. So people were like, maybe you should go to the emergency room. Well, having been a nurse before, I'm like, okay. I was going through the protocol of what you would do if you suspect that somebody's having a stroke. I was sticking my own tongue out, shrugging my shoulders, raising my eyebrows, grip strength, doing all these things. I was convinced that I was not having a stroke. Plus, I wasn't really having a headache. So I kind of calmed down about that, but a couple more times through the night, I had this same crazy, intense pain. So I made an appointment with the doctor, explained what it was, explained, kind of what the pain felt like, the fact that it wasn't there all the time. It just kind of came and went. Where I said it just sort of shoots out the side of my face. He brought up a disorder called trigeminal neuralgia. Even having worked as a nurse, we don't know everything. There's doctors that don't know everything. We kind of specialize in certain fields. If I had heard of it, it was in passing, probably something that was mentioned. I remember learning the cranial nerves, but I learned it for a test and then poof, gone out of my head. He told me to go home, do some research on it, and see if even I felt like this kind of fit. And oh my gosh, first of all, let me tell you, this will haunt your dreams. If you ever know of anybody that gets this diagnosis, or you yourself have been given this diagnosis, it's life altering, to say the least. Just reading about it is horrific. Trigeminal neuralgia is a neuropathic nerve disorder that leads to chronic, I'm just going to say chronic pain. When most people hear chronic pain, they're like, oh, like a chronic backache, or, a pinched nerve, or, something like that. Not the case. To give you a better idea, trigeminal neuralgia's other name, it's also known as tic douloureux. Don't quote me on that because it's a French word that I don't know. But it's also known as the suicide disease. And the reason it's given that name is because approximately, I think it's between 150,000 and 200,000 people in the United States are afflicted with this, and statistics say that of that, roughly 50% of the people diagnosed commit suicide within the first 2 years of diagnosis. The pain is that serious. It is known to be one of the worst pains known to man. It's written about as one of the worst pains known to man. If there's any bright side, it's the fact that, well, there's a couple of bright sides. One is that it's not, for me at least, it's not constant all the time. There is TN1, which is typical, which that means the pain comes in shocks, which can last a few seconds to a few minutes, but then goes away. TN2, which is atypical, which is apparently harder to manage, is a constant. It's always there, always there. And it's also usually, for most people, it afflicts just one side of the face. For me, that's the right side. The other bright side is a lot of people will go into remission, have remission stages. So, and people can go into remission for years. Some people go into remission for the lifetime. So that's at least a bright side, I guess, something to look toward. But for a lot of people, sadly, it is, even as it's written about, it is a condition that worsens over time. The pain tends to get worse. The shocks, the attacks, the flares that they call them, the episodes tend to become more regular, and the treatment becomes less effective. The treatment, I could do a whole other video just about the treatment. Most people start off on a medication called carbamazepine. Otherwise, its trade name is Tegretol. It is a antispasmodic used to treat seizures, and it is, without, beyond the shadow of a doubt, the strongest medicine I've ever taken in my entire life. And I have been given Dilaudid post-surgery in the past. I was given OxyContin one time after surgery. I don't really remember it, but I remember having a prescription for it one time. I had pain medicine in the past, and nothing compares to this. Within the first few days, because you titrate up with this medication, and they were trying to slowly titrate my dose up to the point that it was actually becoming effective. And I got to a point that the dose very early, very within just a few days, that I was having double vision. I couldn't be left alone. I needed my husband to be in the room just when I took a shower because I couldn't stand up straight and was afraid that I would literally fall through the glass shower enclosure. I was slurring my words so badly. I had no balance whatsoever. Had no sense of balance. Nausea, vomiting, even after the dose was tapered back down, because I couldn't bear that for more than a day at all. So we had to decrease the medicine immediately. Even after that, once I got down to a dose that was tolerable, I was left with what I called the DUMS. And this seems to be a common thread among everybody that takes this medication, or the majority, I won't say everybody, the majority of people that take this medication. You can be talking and literally have no clue what word you're trying to come up with. Words will completely escape you. And words that I know, and I know that I know them, and it's so frustrating. I've never been more frustrated in my life as I was when I was on this medication, to the point that I was infuriated, and I'd be infuriated with my husband for not being able to recognize what word I was trying to come up with. He would try to help me to complete my sentences, and if he didn't get the exact word that I knew that I wanted, because I knew what it was, my mouth just wouldn't cooperate. So if he couldn't come up with the exact word that I wanted, then that just intensified the frustration and the anger. And I was so sleepy all the time. And then what's worse is all it did was sort of take the edge off. It didn't make the pain go away. It just made things maybe 10% more bearable. So it was like I was in a no-win situation. And then I went in for a checkup with the doctor, and when they came in to draw blood, and I know this can be common, but it's not common for me. When I went in to have blood drawn, I fainted. And I'm not talking got woozy and slumped over. I'm talking full on fainted, completely blacked out. When I came to, there were 4 people standing over me, including the doctor. They said they were rubbing my sternum, knuckles in the sternum, had been at least a couple of times, were yelling at me, calling my name, and the doctor was like, "You stopped breathing. You were not breathing. You were so far out and gone." Like, well, that's fantastic. So they wouldn't let me leave for a while. Obviously, they couldn't draw the blood. They decided then and there I needed a neurologist. So I'm drawing the story out, but in the end, I saw a neurologist who confirmed the diagnosis, switched my medication, which he said he believed that with the Tegretol, he said that I failed Tegretol. I don't personally believe I failed it. I just believed that it was just too strong for me. Although I do believe it worked. I just need such a minute dose because my body just can't take a stronger dose. And it astounds me how some people can take these astronomical doses, and that works. I mean, I've seen in my days as a nurse, I've seen 80-pound women take morphine doses that would kill an elephant. Your body just learns to acclimate what it needs to. Now, I'm not obviously telling anybody to run out and start increasing their doses of any medication. There's just some medications don't have a ceiling effect. And with your doctor, they help you titrate and get to a medication that's therapeutic for you. I didn't get to a therapeutic dose, and it just wasn't working. So I started this new medicine, and even he told me he wasn't optimistic about it because it is not as effective as the one that I was on. And so I've been on that for a little bit. It's not working. So now we wait. The next step will be to have an MRI read to see if I'm a candidate for brain surgery. So that's where we are. So that's why I've been disappeared for a little bit. And I will update more as I find out more information. And I hope this was a little bit interesting to some of you, because it is a rare disease. So if you have any questions about this or anything, let me know and I'll try to answer what I can. Thanks.